Make it.
At this point, I just go, and
Yeah.
the assumption is if we're here, then we're going.
Yeah. Time to talk.
Well, yeah, it's not the talk isn't going to talk itself.
Words aren't just going to happen.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
One time you told me that I think you said I phoned it in on this is probably talking about song lyrics, and I have to ask you, did you phone it in today, or did you come with citations at the ready to talk about the philosophical background of discipline?
I have a quote. So,
So you came prepared.
yeah.
You know what? I'm going to throw this out there. You strike me as the type of person who could, from memory, name 15 different people from history who have an opinion about discipline.
Yeah. No.
Not that many. 5?
Yeah.
You got 2 last time.
I've got one.
All right, who is it today?
Marcus Aurelius.
He's a cousin of Little Caesar from the pizza business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's from Detroit.
Marcus Aurelius from Detroit.
Detroit.
What is Marcus Aurelius most famed for, other than being a Roman emperor?
He was a Stoic philosopher. I mean, I don't know that they even considered a father of Stoicism. I think if there were, he'd have to be considered for that.
I'm gonna ask the internet while you keep talking about who the father is.
Probably his most known work, not probably, definitely, is Meditations, which I liken Meditations to like the Book of Solomon and Ecclesiastes in the Bible, where Solomon was the son of David and was the king, I guess, of Israel at the time, and Proverbs and I'm pretty sure Ecclesiastes was Solomon as well. I'll have to go back and double check on that, but it's their writings are very much appreciated for the wisdom. Let's just say that
Solomon is considered the traditional. The traditional? That's not the right word. He is considered he's considered the traditional author of Ecclesiastes. Confirmed.
I thought so, but then once I left my mouth, I wasn't sure.
I get twisted on who wrote the ones that have just somebody's name, because I forget whether it was the author's name or it was that one time that guy wrote to that other guy. So
just in the New Testament, guess Paul, and you're probably
Paul.
right.
Always Paul.
Just guess Paul, and you're probably right. You know what I like about Thomas Paine wrote a book called Common Sense, which you're probably aware of, even if you haven't read.
I think I've read it, but I don't remember it.
It's basically a debunking of the Bible from a literal standpoint. And, chronologically, this couldn't have happened. This is not the language of that time. So this was written at a different date. And I think the conclusion that he reached is that the most of the writings of what we assume to be Paul were actually either like a priest or a cardinal or, some higher orthodoxy in the Catholic Church.
You know what I like about Common Sense, the writing by Thomas Paine?
What?
I like that it's referred to as a pamphlet.
Really?
You don't hear much about that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he hand wrote the thing.
A pamphlet.
Pamphlet. Yeah, you know what else you don't hear about anymore? Zines. You ever make zines?
Oh, I thought you meant like the nicotine pouch things.
Is there a nicotine pouch called a zine too?
ZYN. I don't know if it's
pronounced. The one I'm thinking of is ZINES. This is when you draw a cartoon on printer paper or notebook paper or whatever you have handy, and then you go and feed quarters to the copy machine and make copies of it. and you put multiple panels on a page so that you can either fold it up into your final form, or you can cut out the panes and then staple them, and then you distribute them at various alternative culture venues around your town.
That used to be the way to advertise for shows too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Make handbills and
handbills.
pass them out. Yeah.
Pamphlet uh, is to Instagram story as handbill is to, I don't know, like it's a commercial, TV commercial. So
that
tell me your quote from Marcus Aurelius.
At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do, or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but I like the direction
Yeah.
of the quote. It could have been snappier in Latin.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that what he would have
So
spoken?
this, having read a few of the Stoic pieces, this is the general theme is that if you want to achieve virtue, if you want to sort of self-actualize, you have to be disciplined. And the big point for discipline is that a man can't live a virtuous life unless he has discipline. So I subscribe.
So Marcus Aurelius says, "Get out of bed."
He says those blankets feel so good, but that's not what you were born to do.
Do you think this is going to sound like a smart alecky question, but I have to ask it as a serious question. Do you think there was somebody who was born to stay in bed all day?
I think maybe there are complications. I think maybe some people are born with complications that's sort of their station in life, whether it's deep social anxiety or depression or whatever the real scientific diagnosis would be. I think maybe there are people that's a predisposition that is not altogether their fault.
Can you think of the most bad life purpose that you can imagine in your mind that is still acceptable as a life purpose? Meaning, like, this person they're not mentally ill. They're not in some way broken. There's nothing wrong with them per se. They have just picked a purpose or been, handed down from on high, a purpose that is fill the blank. And everybody
just to
around them is like, man, I don't know. I don't know about that guy.
just to exist.
Just plain old so
Just
just the mere nature of existence. First of all, isn't that what we're all cursed with as our purpose?
yeah, I
To
think
exist.
to exist, but I think that's a baseline state of being. It's no different than a shark or choose your species. I mean, it's eat, sleep, the basic functions of survival as an organism. That's existence to me. And I
So
think
if you have a collection of jelly jars full of pocket lint, how does that rank compared to the existence of a shark? But
well, the lint
you're
doesn't
not
have.
only are you into the jelly jars, you're like, that's your main thing, is your jelly jars full of lint.
Yeah, there's no with the lint. There's no need to do anything to survive. It's just there. That's existence with no activity necessary. Just there.
I'm always 5 questions away from an existential crisis, and we're getting
No.
closer and closer because Okay, so if the shark existence is the bare minimum that you got to exist, then but there's no discipline to being a shark. You're just a shark. You're
Yeah.
just a prehistoric cartilage pile with teeth, ready to eat and mate, and that's like your life. That's it. You don't think about it. You can't think about it. You got electrical sensors in your snout. You don't even know you have electrical sensors in your snout. You don't know anything. You're just a shark. And one step up from that is the belly button. I'm sorry, it was pocket lint, right? What I said
Pocket
before.
lint.
I'm gonna switch it. It's
Yeah.
belly button lint collector. So
All
you're a
right.
lint collector. So then the lint collector existence is above a shark because there's no compulsion. Sorry, there's no what is it? What are you trying to say here? There's no need. It's purely extraneous or tangential to survival.
Yeah. It's a base existence. And I think different things, different species, different items have different base existence ease, existences.
What separates Bob Dylan's musical poetry from a truly great collection of lint?
There's a connection to energy that is excited uh, in a couple of different ways, and it has an impact on things outside of it.
You can't see the lint collection also meeting those criteria.
No.
Just like it's such a spectacular. So if you have a run of the mill average lint collection, I'm totally with you. I see a huge difference. But what if you have a heroic, you know, classically epic lint collection? Can it ever be epic enough to even compete with one simple little Bob Dylan song? Probably not,
Yeah.
because it's lint.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of this because all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to argue the other side because I'm not in favor of lint collecting being equivalent to Bob Dylan musical poetry. But I can't. If you ask me why is it not the same, I don't have an answer.
But okay, so is this a fair question though, that you will, not rightly or wrongly, just you will find people, and probably a lot of them, that a Bob Dylan song is no better than a stack of lint, than a jar full of lint.
Yes, that I think it's highly likely that across, particularly if you look across all humans that have ever existed or thrived, a large share, like you're going to find ones that cannot distinguish between lint collection and Bob Dylan. And if you were to suddenly have all humans able to see the world's most spectacular jelly jar lint collection and witness the collected works of Bob Dylan simultaneously, I don't I don't think it would not be easy for me to say which way is the balance of humanity going to go, Lint or Dylan. I mean, certainly,
You know,
like of people that I'm likely to interact with over the next 6 days, it's going to be Dylan, 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 Dylan. Of people I'm likely to interact with over the next 20 years, not a single one of those people is going to be like, no, I will take the lint collection. Look at how big it is. Or at least not, they wouldn't tell me that.
did you know there are more people alive today than have ever died?
Yes, I did know that. That's actually that the large numbers and the inability of the human mind to comprehend and process large numbers is one of my favorite areas to ponder, which is funny because I'm pondering the fact that I'm unable to successfully ponder these things. So factoids like that really stick in my head.
Yeah, that it's anti-intellectual almost. Like it doesn't make logical sense
It's
because
counterintuitive.
counterintuitive, not anti-intellectual, counterintuitive. Yes, very much so. Interesting.
Do you have a citation for that? And where should I be looking?
I don't know.
My version of more people are alive now than have ever died is something like there are more people currently alive now What? No, I'm butchering it. I'm butchering it. So I think that the numbers are a little off. The dead, all humans who have ever died, outnumber the currently living. We're at like, how many people live on Earth right now? 10
7
billion,
billion.
7 to 10 billion. Yeah, 7
Yeah.
billion. So 107 billion people have ever lived. But still, I mean, that's not bad. We're at like, what, 8% of all the people that have ever lived are currently alive. And people have been around for a long time. This
Yeah.
is
Really
according.
long time.
I looked up. I just Googled it and found Scientific American and BBC trying to they're basically trying to Snopesy your stat. And
Yeah.
the conclusion to the statistics, all 10 of the first 10 results on the Google machine, every one of them says
More
no.
people died.
Technically there are more dead people, but if the point of this statistic was look at what a huge portion of people are alive now versus all time, then yeah, so just use that as the thing to be in amazement about, which I think we both
Plus,
are.
yeah. Plus, I don't know that I trust that we know how many people have been alive all time. There's a lot of extrapolations there.
That's true. That's enough. I got out of that game. I don't do estimates on numbers like that anymore. I just try and fix whatever's in front of my face. It was too much. It got in my head too much,
So
and
you
I
brought up a
couldn't
good
separate. Yeah, go ahead.
you brought up a good point the other day when we were talking about this,
Yeah, I don't
and
feel like I've brought up any good points today. Mostly just lint points.
well, this was a good point, and I think is be interesting to flesh out a little bit. The notion of what of discipline is timeless versus today. So, what are the tenets of discipline that are timeless? How has that evolved? Do we know? Do we think discipline is viewed the same today as it was 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years ago? Or 1,000 years ago was existence, evolving, but was still just a shade above shark. So what of discipline to you is what is timeless and what is a new phenomenon?
Well, I mean, Marcus Aurelius lived approximately 1900 years ago. And the quote that he made that you read us, so while he may have stated that or written that in a language that is now dead, uh, I feel like that quote could have been from, I don't know, Gary Vaynerchuk or 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 like anybody at any time in history since then or today. So I feel like the only part I'm hung up on is does the stuff that makes it through history and continues to be brought up, and like whatever even made it into your consciousness to be bringing up as a quote, is all of that stuff sort of biased to what we were interested in keeping, or is it an actual indication of timelessness, or is it just a matter of, you know, selection bias from the time that we're all, we're going to pick out the quotes that all sort of fit into the same buckets, and therefore, the collected works of the rest of the stuff Marcus Aurelius said were about how everybody should flog their horse thrice as hard in order to avoid the sunspots from when you know gather up the. I'm
Lint.
losing my train of thought here, but yeah, he could have had an entire body of work about the value of pocket lint, but the stuff that we're picking up on is this thing that's meaningful to us now. I feel like we can basically trust the general waves and trends of history. So things like if you boil this down to what he's saying is you should probably get up and work hard. That feels pretty timeless. I mean, it feels pretty timeless. It's not like there's a whole school of philosophers that are widely read and hugely popular that are advocating for the opposite of that. certainly. I mean, there may be some variation. Like if you talk about, if you're looking for clarity of mind and living a simple type of life, then maybe you don't care so much about working hard. But that's not the opposite of working hard. That's just a different parallel point of view. You don't have like, if I look for quotables, they're like, you should be lazy all the time and stay in bed. You're only going to find comedians and people that are saying it tongue in cheek.
Yeah. So I think this quote to me, and it's one of the reasons why I picked it out, is it's counterintuitive. That's the word of the day. But it's counterintuitive because it feels like to me, and this is one of those things that sounds good, but is it based in reality, or is it a prisoner of the now situation? It feels like a lot of our discipline today is geared towards a sedentary, unmotivated, aimless population, and the David Goggins and the Gary V's and the motivators. There are a ton of them. They're all over Instagram, but those people are trying to motivate an aimless society. So it feels like to me that is more a problem than in Marcus Aurelius's time. Obviously, we have no metrics to evaluate that, but it feels like discipline is more necessary today. I feel like people have to be prodded into things because we're more affluent, and um, you know we're we don't have to struggle for food, and it's a land of plenty. I think people have to be prodded harder to do the things that generations prior did instinctively, and that feels like the right position to me. But that's what I'm interested in discussing a little bit.
Series of follow-ups for you then. Uh, do you feel that the world, all of it, not just our piece of it, is living in a time of plenty or a time of scarcity?
No, and it's a fantastic point. Couple of sentences on this. It's a fantastic point because I think even in cultures like Japan, where they are also living in times of plenty, discipline is very much embedded in their culture. And more, I would say, it's more dispersed. It's a larger distribution of their culture that is a disciplined culture. I think here we have our tails are small. Our tails are much smaller in terms of discipline, but I think they're a broader distribution of their culture is discipline. So I think your question is right. No, not everybody is in plenty. But I think the living standards have been raised.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even in cultures where they're roughly as wealthy as we are, there are cultures like Japan and others, but that are much more disciplined than we are. Again, it feels like
I have some manga you should check out.
Somewhat.
I have some philosophical manga you should check out that is very much pondering and observing on the depths of what you're talking about. It's like the disillusionment when your culture. So if let's say everything you're saying is right, and there are a lot of comics written about what's it like to be a regular Joe in a society like that. All right, next question. Uh, do people generally strive for self-betterment?
No.
Okay, several variations on the same question. Do people seek to improve their lot in life?
Not really.
When faced with scarcity or hardship, do people tend to solve their own problems and seek out greener pastures?
I would say historically, yes. My fear is, the concern is that we've distilled a lot of that out of our culture.
All right. So then the follow up to this, and where I was getting with the line of questioning, was put your all people alive right now hat on, all 7 billion of them. Same questions for everybody on the planet. Do people given the choice of complacency in a bad situation or improving your life and moving to greener pastures, do people generally tend to seek greener pastures or
No.
accept a miserable lot in life?
So I think the bulk of the world is one. Again, America is at I think a new place. But yeah, I think by and large, the rest of the world, as much as they have, and you can't, it's hard to paint with a monolithic brush, but as much as they have the capacity to seek uh, greener pastures, as you phrased it, yeah, I think they do. I think you. That's why you see folks move. Try to cross borders and move and get one family member out to the west or to some the next biggest economy, so they can make it, send money back, or eventually bring people over. Yeah, I think. But again, I'm seeing it through our prism here. Um, there are probably way more examples of people in those situations who've resigned themselves to their condition than I'm giving credit for. So what is the ratio of folks who leave to go to the next biggest economy versus those who say, well, this is my village, this is where I'm from, this is where I'm staying?
Well, that's pretty one dimensional. I'm thinking, if you are faced with, like, what's the marginal thing that would get you to leave? And this gets down to, the difference between shark existence and
Yeah.
non-shark existence. If there are no more fish for a shark to eat, a shark will seek out new fishing grounds rather than sit and starve. Uh, Humans are no different. If there are no fish to eat, the humans will find new fishing grounds. I think that is basically universal, but that's what you're talking about as, existence living, or barely getting by living, meaning just enough to not be dead, basically.
Yeah.
That's the seeking, new fishing grounds when you're a hungry shark. The living out of plenty and the decisions that are made out of plenty, as opposed to the decisions that are made out of scarcity. I think you always have two completely different. Those are two totally different scenarios, and they are approached completely differently by people. It's if the piece of my brain that is basically the extra part. This is the part that I'm already alive, like I'm breathing, I'm walking, my heart is beating, I ate. I feel like these are these are the basics, and you have levels of what else is there beyond that until you eventually get to, am I attending a Gary Vaynerchuk lecture so that I can get pumped up about reaching my all? So I
Yeah.
think a place where I strongly agree with you here is most people are living closer to like, I'm here and that's enough, as opposed to, how do I thrive and find, my own personal excellence or my personal best, whatever that may be. However, I would say that the place where maybe I disagree with you the most is, I think people are fundamentally lazy and complacent, and as soon as their belly is full, they're good to go. And I also think that that's basically fine. And I'm looking at things in terms of, global population. So, like, if my belly is full but I'm unhappy because I'm bored, or because I'm looking for love, or because I want to raise kids, or because I want a bigger car, all of those things that would drive me to go seek those other things, that is my calculus, right? Like, am I fed, and then what else do I need? But me, the one out of 7 billion people, generalizing to say, oh, well, people are like Fat Russ, who his belly's full and now he's just, sitting there playing video games, and instead he should be looking for a bigger, faster car. Or, oh, he's got the bigger, faster car, he should be looking to get out there and do good works. There's one to turn it on its head. What if altruism is actually just another version of trying to have more, and the endless thriving and the endless striving. So I think that the timelessness of discipline is a minority of people, situations, circumstances, society and culture. The alignment toward when discipline is needed versus when fat belly, lazy happiness is needed. It's just always a minority of people, scenarios, situations, and everything else, in my opinion.
I think it comes down to a question of intentionality. Are you intentionally disciplined, or are you by necessity disciplined? And I think those are the categories. It is, I think the level of discipline that an individual has depends on their state of shelter, how readily available food is. Are they in crime? They're just sort of the base needs. If the shark is fed and gets to mate, then the shark is fine. And I think that's situational sort of necessity-based discipline with us, with humans as well. But I think there's we all have the capability and the capacity for intentional discipline, for to better our situation, to be more, to we have critical thought for a reason. And
I think one of the things that I'm trying to ferret out here is who's the veil of ignorance? Was that Rawls?
I don't know.
You know this concept?
I don't.
So John Rawls, Rawls, is a philosopher. He came up with this concept of a veil of ignorance. The idea of the veil of ignorance is that, you should imagine in your mind you are behind a wall, a veil, that's keeping you from knowing who you are and identifying your own personal circumstances. So you have no idea what your circumstances are, and then you have to make philosophical decisions or weigh in on how society should operate, with knowing that whatever you philosophize about and whatever you advocate for is, you're as equally likely to be a pauper as you are to be the king. And your policy, like your decisions about policy making and the philosophy or the political philosophy, ought to reflect, you weren't you, right? Or you didn't know that you were you. So that's the veil of ignorance. And I lost my train of thought on what the actual point was, but now you've heard about the veil of ignorance and John Rawls. And I want to say that where I was trying to go here was, I want to know, like, what part of human drive is actually universal, whereas what part of it is not. So I think wanting stuff, here, let me give you my very basics. Not wanting to be dead, 100% universal. Wanting stuff in some form or another, more food, nicer place to live, a sunnier day, the ability to surf on my lunch break, like whatever it is, like the stuff. Like I want things, and I want more things, not less things. I feel like that's pretty universal and basic. And
yep.
There we get to, how far am I going to go to get the things that I want? And like, how much more am I going to go? Because you got sort of like here's a good illustrative example. Imagine I said to you, gosh, Terry, I could kill for a glass of ice water right now. The appropriate response from you would be, Russ, I don't think you need to kill for a glass of ice water. You should head for the freezer, get some ice cubes and some water, and come back down here. I think you're taking this too far, Russ. And so, it's how far would you go for that thing? Like, do you want the ice water because it's within arm's reach? Or do you want to like cross a desert to go get the ice water because you just really love the ice water? And I don't know where the line is between, and I don't even know how to ferret out of people's words and deeds how much they actually have that is discipline versus I just really, 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 really want that thing, and I'm craving for it so hard that I will, become my most base animalistic self and go get it. Because one of those is clearly discipline. One of those is just, it's not really discipline. You know what I mean?
So for
It's just a
me,
shark looking for a fish, and they just want a big, big, big fish.
the discipline is not just meted out for material things. In fact, that's a small portion of it. For me, discipline is a release of inhibitions, of things that hold me back from, um, uh, being present, being all of the capabilities that I have as a person that I was born with. I'll never be Max Planck or Albert Einstein, but of all the capabilities that I was born with, discipline allows me to remove the barriers that keep me from doing that, whatever they may be. So, yes, I think we tend to frame discipline, and I don't mean just you and me, but generally, we tend to frame discipline as physical exercise, the rigor of doing something to
Yeah.
get something. And for me, that's only a very small part of the equation. The rest of the equation is discipline is a way for me to remove things, to get rid of things, whether it's leading with the ego and taking everything personally, or thinking that I have the right answer in every situation. These are real problems today, by the way. But for me, discipline is the way to dissolve the things that hold me back, or the barriers from, I hate the term self-actualization because it's so cliche at this point, but that hold me back from, sort of extracting whatever level of talent or opportunity or peace or clarity or wisdom that I've been dealt. I don't want the junk that we accumulate because we're nasty little animals. I don't want that junk to hold me back from realizing what those things are. And so for me, discipline is not just the rigor of being fit physically, or the rigor of having stuff because I work hard. It's way more than that. And I think that's the aspect of discipline that I'm interested in, why some have it and some don't. Some cultures have it and some don't. Some people have it and some don't. And I think a lot of what today's discipline is, while the David Goggins and the physical aspect of it is a real problem because obesity or whatever, but I think what I'm interested in figuring out, the thought experiment for me and this whole discussion is, why is this such an obvious thing for me? And I feel like I'm watching a different movie. Like, I just feel like people are content with the lowest common denominator across the board. And I see, and in lots of conversations, I just want to say, do you know how much better you would feel? Do you know how much differently your life would go with just a little bit of discipline? And that to me is what the discussion of discipline is how do you unpack stuff?
This isn't a disagreement, but I also think that what you're talking about is looking for more, right? Like you're not looking for less, and you're not complacent. You're after something, and you want to reach a higher plane, or you want to self improve, and all of those things. You can you substitute a big fancy house with a pool in the Hollywood Hills for I am a good person who likes myself. Like these are both, you want to like yourself more, just like I want to have a pool more, and those are transferable, even though one is stuff and one is your inner being, because we're talking about the human impulse to seek more. You know what I mean? And I don't mean it as stuff. I mean it as more of whatever thing is important. So a lot of what I also want to know the answer to the question, why do you feel like you're watching a different movie? Why do you feel like you're disciplined, or why is discipline not universal. And I'm trying to pick apart, is it due to complacency or is it due to a difference in preferences, right? So if someone has, say, zero self-awareness, like all the way baseline zero, they're never going to know what they want, and they're just going to jump from mashed potatoes and gravy to ice cream to Cocoa Puffs, and they're not self-actualized. They are a mashed potato. But they don't know that they're a mashed potato, and they're never going to know they're a mashed potato. And if you talk about discipline improving their lot in life, they will feel like you are speaking a different language at
Right.
minimum, or they'll feel like you're an alien.
But so I would say, yes, if you start a conceptual, intellectual discussion about discipline and the merits of discipline, you're going to see a lot of glazed eyes. But I think
Can we specifically talk about mashed potato man? I want to know how you plan to resonate with mashed potato, the man and the connoisseur of mashed potato.
Eat your mashed potatoes, my man. Like they're fine. But the question that I would ask a lot of people, and it's not just mashed potato man, it's banker guy or attorney or pilot, or choose your occupation. Like, are you good with living this way? Like, do you like that gnawing at your stomach, anxious feeling that you have from day to night? No? Why not try something different? Like, do you feel, are you present for your children? Are you present? Are your relationships great? Like, do you have rich relationships? No. Do you want that? Do you want to try something different?
I don't think you're being selfish enough. In this sense, there are people that I don't like, and there are people whose lives I question, and there are people who make decisions that make no sense to me, that seem stubbornly self-destructive, or they seem like they're constantly self-sabotaging, and that it would be easy to not do that anymore. And any thought I have about those things for the people around me is they're so fleeting. They're so fleeting. It comes and goes. I try and learn observationally from it if I can, but if I can't make a near immediate parallel to my life, and if I was in their shoes, what would I be doing? And so I do the same thing, when you describe your disciplined life. Like, if I was in Terry's shoes, if I was in Terry's circumstances, what would I do with my time? What would I do with my body? What would I do with my meals? What would I do with my mashed potatoes? Where would I live? Would I get a neck tattoo and a quadra of jet skis and move to Florida? And I'm like, I don't think I would. But I'm able to dismiss these questions really, really quickly, because the answer I come to very, very fast. It feels like when I'm trying to look at a chessboard and my mind can't keep up with all the moves that could possibly come out, where I just like seize up with the inability to answer and say, it's too complicated. So similarly, I'm like, the easiest answer of what I would do if I was in Terry's shoes, whatever Terry did. Like, why? Like, probably do the same thing as Terry.
So probably, yeah. But this is why it matters, though. And I respect the point about, keep your own doorstep clean and kind of go with that. But here's why
I'm not philosophizing or moralizing about this. I am a stubbornly self-interested and self-obsessed person, right? Like, this is a selfish thing, which is not necessarily good. It's just, I think you should be more selfish.
But here's why it matters. I feel like a lot of the things that are big ticket problems in our culture and globally come down to an increasingly large proportion of people have no discipline, no intellectual discipline, no emotional discipline, certainly no physical discipline. We have a healthcare system that's broken. Yeah, the system is bad and needs reformed, but people need to be more disciplined in their approach to healthcare. And all the problems associated with how many people go through financial ruin because of a healthcare crisis that was caused by a chronic condition that discipline would have fixed. How many people commit crime? What are all the downstream societal and cultural effects from an individual's lack of discipline? And that's why I'm concerned about it. And then not even getting into the how many shitty relationships are out there. How many people
At
suck
least three.
at least three. I mean, how many people suck down pharmaceuticals to try to regulate what is something that could 99% of the time be fixed by discipline? And I think those are and that's not judge. That's not a position of judgment. It's just all of these things are broader societal problems that are systemic of a broader proportion, an increasingly larger proportion of people with no discipline. And I think that's why I think about those things like I'm seeing a different movie is like, this could all be different easily.
Do you think you'll crack this nut before you die?
No, no,
I don't think you will either.
no.
I think you're gonna go to your grave befuddled by how society wasn't different. I think if you die tomorrow, your last thought was so much missed potential. If you die in 35 more years or 50 more years, you'll spend the next 35 or 50 years circling around the same exact question. I think how long have you been asking these same questions?
It's been I've been like this since I was young, but there's been a more sort of rigorous intellectual approach to this as I've learned more, obviously, and had more experiences, and sought to sort of correct some of these things in my own life and in my own person. And to me, it's like, I feel so much better. Why would you not want to try this? Why is everyone,
Okay,
not wanting?
fine. I'll bite on that one. I also have often found myself comparing to doing the best apples to apples comparison I possibly can. So find the most demographically comparable people I can from, the same chunk of time, or adjust for, like I graduated right before the 2008 recession. So you'll find other people that were in the same college class as me, or a year or two before, or compare that to 3 years after, where there's like a freaking cliff of difference in, career outcome. And I'm just going to stick with career for this, but career outcomes between pre-recession graduates and post-recession graduates. So trying to get to people who are basically the same as me in almost all measurable ways, but are getting very different outcomes in terms of their ability to, uh, I don't know, thrive professionally, but also be satisfied with their lot professionally. And seeing, like, I feel like nothing I have done is unique or special or couldn't be copied by anybody else. A good example of this is when I quit my job about a year ago. I just didn't really stop working. I mean, this sounds, and I think the people that I look at that this would not resonate with, like, what do you mean you didn't stop working? Like, you didn't have a job. Why would you work? I'm not going to work for no money. And I was like, well, I'm working because I like to do stuff that will lead to things getting done. Like, maybe it's compulsion, maybe it's habit, maybe it's just a feeling of satisfaction. I was working at a job for an employer. Now I am working at the job of finding work. One of the paths I have for how to find work is I sit down at a computer, the same as I did the day before I quit, and I turn on the computer and I figure out what I need to work on today. And one of those things might be apply for jobs, but one of those things is going to be, call everybody I know and talk to them about what I should do next about work. And that gets me through the first 5 days of not having a job. And after doing that for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, it turns out that the difference between what I was doing for a job and what I was doing while not having a job, the work part was the least different. I mean, the pay is different. The hours, I mean, they were the same. Like, it was determined by when my kids went to school. I'm not going to sit here and just watch television while my wife supports the family. And so the biggest, like, life hack of work was, it turns out that the key to the whole thing was just don't stop working.
Yeah.
Like, just keep working. And that is something that literally any person who had another job and then didn't have the job could do and could copy. And I have no reason to believe they wouldn't have the same success. Similarly to you saying, like, almost every human being on earth could go run 2 miles with 6 weeks of training or less. And they would almost all feel better for doing it. And almost none of them do, statistically speaking.
Your point is a good one to end on, because I think it's if there's a call to action with this entire discipline discussion, it's don't stop working. Like, just don't stop working. Don't stop, whether that's introspection or self-awareness or physical work or discipline in whatever form you want to call it. It's got to be something. And I think that baseline, as Marcus Aurelius said, the decision to sort of pull up the warm cover and stay there, that's not an option. And I think that's what discipline is however you want to define it. The benefits are tangible. You just have to keep doing it. And I think that's kind of what it's meant for me in all of the ways that we've evaluated that.
Do you think we covered it today?
I loved the conversation.
Because I actually have to go and play video games.
I'm going to go take a nap. So
here's to discipline.
Here's to discipline.
Bye, Terry.
Have a good day, man.